Hey guys, it's Schwasti. I hope you've all been keeping well. I hope you're all really excited for BattleBit Remastered. The final playtest is happening this week and let me tell you, I am very excited. I'm going to be playing it all weekend, apart from work. Work has dragged me in to do something on Saturday. But outside of that, I'm going to be playing this game a lot. So expect to see some more content in the coming weeks as I gather a load of new footage. Also, let me really quickly address the gameplay that you're seeing on screen before we get into today's topic. I'm running around on District with the HK419 in a round of Conquest. This match was recorded on the 19th of February this year, so you may notice some minor changes here and there. This is a great map for infantry gameplay, and I focus a lot of my attention in the gauntlet that is the C flag. But all that aside, in today's video, I'd like to take the opportunity to discuss the future of BattleBit Remastered post early access launch. This game has been in development since 2016 and has gone through a couple of different overall reworks to get to the stage that we're at now, hence why they've added Remastered to the title. And through consistent development and by actually responding to the feedback the community provided, they've landed on what you see before you now. This is what video game development should be. Open communication with your community and adapting the project based on what you hear back. The BattleBit Remastered team have been very open with their development all along. They'd rather show the community what they've been working on as they make it, rather than hiding behind endless teasers and trailers. DICE, you should be taking some notes. But after all of their hard work, the game is finally being put into the players' hands permanently in the coming weeks. No more will we have to free up our Saturdays in order to get in as much playtest time as possible. We're going to be able to play when we want, and let me tell you, not being exhausted half the time is going to do wonders for my gameplay. So what's next for this title? What will the developers stride towards once the curtain has been raised? I'm going to give you my opinions based on what I've heard so far, and what makes sense to me. So let's start at the beginning, right when the game hits early access. I reckon that we won't see much in the way of new features for at least the first couple of months. That time will be spent on optimizing server stability, developing initial hotfixes for any bugs that arise, and making tweaks to core elements based on community feedback. This will likely be in the form of weapon rebalancing, objectives and vehicle spawn rebalancing, and some UI updates. The team already makes good use of the suggestions channel on the official BattleBit Discord, and that's where the community can vote on the recommendations provided by other players. But what about after that? We'll likely see a new map released every few months to keep the game fresh. There's already something like 15 to 20 solid maps in the game, which is a lot more than you'll see in most AAA titles, so I don't think pushing out new maps will be their top priority. It would be nice to add something new into the roster every now and again to keep the player numbers high, but I don't reckon there'll be too much backlash if we went a few months without any new offerings. I would instead like the team to focus on expanding out the character classes and rebalancing. So as an example of that, currently the medic is the meta, and it's what you'll see the majority of players running around with, something that I'm quite guilty of myself. The ability to heal yourself and others on the fly is a huge crush when you're going on epic flanks and scoring amazing kill feeds. I reckon the medic class should be rebalanced, as no other class even comes close in terms of overall effectiveness. They could do this by limiting the amount of weapons available to the class, they could reduce the amount of magazines you can carry or the equipment that's available to you. The fact that every medic has the option to take out tanks by themselves with C4 needs some consideration. That's something that the engineer class should be most proficient in, and in a limited capacity too, the assault and support class. Now speaking of support, the fact that there are so many assault rifles, snipers, SMGs and sidearms makes the fact that there are only 2 support weapons on offer almost laughable. Sure, the M249 isn't bad, but I'd like to see a larger selection of light machine guns, heavy machine guns, and magazine-fed infantry support weapons available to this class. If they're lacking inspiration, simply look no further to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 support classes. They offered a good variety of weaponry and there was something for every playstyle. Alongside the medic rebalancing, I would like to see the support class take some initiative. Also see if they can rework the bipods for snipers and LMGs. Currently they only really work when prone, and I'd like to see players make better use of the custom barricades that you can build to completely overhaul the flow of the map. Not really too much to say on the sniper class. They've said that they're addressing an issue where the next shot doesn't properly sync to the bolt animation, so it actually takes a little bit longer before you're ready to fire again, so that's good to see. Some of the bolt action rifles do sound a little bit weak. I'd like to see a bit more snap when I fire. Also, some of the marksman rifles could do with a little less recoil to make them more viable option. Right now I feel like that even the AK-74 is a better alternative when I want to use a DMR. Moving on to the vehicles, I think the helicopters are in a good place. The Black Hawk transport helis are tanky and they offer some good consistent firepower. They're weak on their own, but with a crew of 3 or more players, they can turn the tide of a battle. I'd also like to see the Russian faction have their own helicopter, like an Mi-26 with mounted machine guns on the side and a tail machine gun, but I'm sure we'll see that in the near future. The attack little birds are another story. I haven't really played with them much as I'm not very good, but I feel like A, they should be a little bit weaker to incoming large caliber fire, so that the pilot is forced to make better use of the terrain and pick their targets. And B, I think the miniguns could be a little bit beefier. Not too much, but maybe just bring up the damage a smidge to make them more effective at guerrilla tactics. Hard hitting, but fragile. Stay in the open a little too long and you're a goner. The tanks and infantry fighting vehicles feel a little bit floaty and move around a little too quickly for my liking. I'm not saying that this is something that desperately needs to be fixed, it could just be a personal complaint of mine, but they definitely don't feel like a heavy armoured vehicle. For that I'd probably recommend some changes to the inertia of the vehicles, but again it's not a huge factor. Okay, I know this has become less of a future of BattleBit Remastered video and more of a bug fix wish list, so let's talk about what's not currently in the game. Over on the game's Discord, they've already made mention to additional factions in the future, so it's not always just going to be US versus Russia. Now who these factions might be is currently unknown, but it's fair to say we could see major players like the Chinese, the Brits, possibly even Australia in the future, so I'd look forward to seeing that and the new vehicles, weapons and maps they bring with them. Another thing that they made mention to is the fact that there's a rising competitive scene within the game. I've seen YouTubers like Decimal take on other clans in small scale clan maps. The Discord does make mention to live events and tournaments, so I expect they'll be focusing on the competitive scene very closely. After all, the longevity of any squad based shooter lies in its clans and communities. Keep them happy and you have a recipe for a long-standing title with a constant flow of new diehard players. And the final thing that they mentioned is that we're unlikely to ever actually see official Steam support for this game, as nothing is currently in the works to support this. Whether we'll ever see third-party add-ons is anybody's guess. Personally, I would love to see if they could do some Star Wars or World War II mods like we've seen in other games, but I won't hold my breath on that one. Anyway guys, that just about wraps it up for today's video. What do you think is the future of this game? And what do you think of the points that I've made in this video? Please let me know by leaving a comment down below. As always, I'd appreciate if you could rate the video and consider subscribing to see a lot more BattleBit Remastered content in the coming weeks. I hope you guys all have a fantastic week and I'll see you soon. Take care.